I find particularly interesting is that very few people do this, what I'm doing. And there's two excuses that you often get. One of them, and they're really sort of fear-based excuses, right? That people are really afraid of social judgment from other people, or um, you know, people believing that they're somehow crazy or weird. And it took a long time to for me to get through this and to get over this. So I actually wanted to talk about it. So if you don't know me, I'm Professor Dave Massac. I'm Associate Professor of Innovation Strategy and Entrepreneurship, and I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There's so many people that help me out that I want to pay the favor forward to help you out. It is particularly strange and unusual that people just don't do this like more people don't do this where they just kind of chit chat to the to everybody on the internet. There's a lot of opportunity to be had, right? So you can think about, okay, there's no opportunity today, and that is true. But this stuff lasts forever, right? You're building little libraries basically for for people to learn this, and because of the way the internet works, it's persistent and it just stays up there forever. So somebody's going to listen to this and 35 years and still get something from it. So very few people are going to initially listen to it, and then it sort of builds up and builds up. And as long as you have something that is unique-ish, but everybody has unique experiences, that it wouldn't be that hard to do that. Sort of have unique self-expression or discussions and that kind of thing. Anybody has unique experiences. So it's interesting that there is a lot of fear basically behind all of this, and there's two things that I think about that is driving this. The first one is real fear and a real uh, imposter syndrome, or you're afraid of other people, whatever, all of those kind of things. And that's very true. And I still try to get over that. And the only way you can get over that is repetition and just doing it. And eventually you get to the point where you just like kind of don't care, and it becomes like, whatever, who cares if there's, right now there's um 13 of you, right? Like, that are listening, and maybe at some point this will climb to 10,000 people that are listening. Like, who cares, right? And you just gotta get to that point where you're just like that, where it really doesn't matter. It's kind of like what radio announcers have to sort of think about, right? If you think about that, there's 10,000 people listening to you, you kind of get freaked out, but whatever. The other thing that I think is interesting is kind of along the same lines, is that people think that it's A, it's below them, or B, that they don't have the time, the resources, whatever. And honestly, what I've learned is just to make this part of my life. And whenever I'm commuting, people have different kind of commutes, but you could definitely do something like this on a subway. It would be loud, it'd be interesting, right? Like, you got different noises and things in the background, but it's just really and part of that, I think, is driven. I don't know if it's like pretension of people just thinking that they have sort of more important things to do, or that they're just prioritizing their time in different ways. I don't quite understand that, because I've never been. That's not who I am, right? Like, I don't think that I'm somehow better or unique or whatever. I kind of, in fact, I my way I feel about things is I'm completely opposite. I'm totally inferior. So I'd be on the other side, right, of that. Huge amounts of imposter syndrome, huge amounts of I'm not good enough, all those kind of things, all those emotions. Even just talking about it right now, I sort of have emotional triggers that just mentioning it comes up, and I feel not great. But what is interesting is that all of this kind of goes away with just simply doing it, and going through repetition and repetition and repetition. And the funny thing is that in if I'm meeting with somebody and it's kind of more like a one-on-one, or even like I do okay with one-on-one. Um, the harder part for me, I don't do well in groups. Anything more than say 4 or 5 people, I feel really nervous and anxious inside. And anything more than especially larger groups where there's lots of people around. Eventually, you kind of like reach a point where it doesn't really matter. Like it's just what's another person, right? That's kind of like what teaching is. Um, but what's interesting is that when talking about this, it's awkward. It's weird for me to talk about this, and yet this is like I don't know why everybody's not doing this. This is like the opportunity that you have, and it is it's pretty big in terms of the long term opportunity. Short term, I would say no. You're not gonna get rich, um, like today by doing it. Um, and not everybody is gonna get rich and all that kind of stuff, right? Like that is totally not what you're doing, but the sort of opportunity of somebody stumbling along what you're doing and saying, "Hey, that's kind of interesting. I'd like to talk to that person." That certainly is there. I don't think like the advertising revenue and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that is like. I think you could get to the point where I think an average person can get to the point where you're bringing in advertising revenue and to the point where you can bring in enough advertising revenue that you can maybe buy yourself a vacation every year, just a nice vacation, go and do something. I think that is completely reasonable as an expectation. Some people are going to do pretty, well with the sort of creation of different content and things, but most people are kind of just playing around, right? But still, here's the thing that's interesting, right? So let's say you could do this and it's in your spare time and you're just kind of farting around. Um, I'm commuting right now, right? Like you're just kind of chit chatting. Um, I don't understand why people don't do it because you can get yourself a free vacation every year by just kind of blabbermouthing on a regular basis, and just kind of getting used to it. And it's been really interesting for me in terms of the ability to speak loudly and think. Think out loud. This is all new. This is like traditionally not me, and this has been something that it's been a bit of a positive in terms of this is kind of like diarying, right? It's kind of like a diary, and people are just thinking about what you're thinking or following along on the journey of your personal diary, and it's interesting to the sort of emotional development that you go through, that all of these things, right? So and all of these fears that I had, being imposter syndrome, of feeling nervous, and all these kind of things are very real, and I still experience them. But you do learn how to engage a little bit more, or control that stuff, and that's a pretty positive thing, I would say. And I would encourage everybody to get used to that, or I encourage people to sort of think about this as like, hey, that there's opportunities here that are really low cost. Um, anyway, sorry about that. I just got interrupted on a phone call, but yeah, no, I just think it's really interesting that people don't do this, and I know it's kind of a weird. It is weird to do this, right? And so why, the question is why is it weird? Why do we feel this sort of weirdness? I know that there is, the random nutcase out there is going to say some negative things, or, all those kind of things, all of that stuff, right? Like the stranger danger stuff of like, oh, you might lose your job. Um, oh, you never know what people are going to say. Oh, like all of those kind of things. It's interesting that we are so, bound by that, and there is these sort of significant opportunities that are there. They're significant enough. I would, going on a vacation, um, every year having a nice vacation based on doing something like this, right? Like a podcast or the old YouTube or whatever. You know, it's kind of interesting, right? So that's what I'm saying. It's just an interesting phenomenon that more people don't do it, given the fact that the world is enormous, um, and people are going to stumble across it at some point. It's just an interesting phenomenon. That's all. So, um, yeah, good luck if you're doing anything like this. Try not to get and don't get. I think the biggest thing is just not getting into your head and not getting like um, just doing it and just enjoying it and don't take yourself ever too seriously. I think that's the key thing with all of it. There are barriers and boundaries and stuff that are very real in this world, and one of them is this, where you feel like you're inferior, you're limited and all that kind of stuff. But if you just kind of not take yourself seriously, I think you kind of go a little bit further and trying to explore. And so just, repetition, not taking yourself seriously, and just bombing along. Anyways, take care and have a wonderful day.